Ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning. Welcome to your nation's capital. This is the subcommittee on early childhood, elementary, and secondary education. The committee will come to order. A quorum is present. Without objection, the chair is authorized to call a recess at any time. We're glad to have you here, and those in the audience, thank you. We're going to have a great hearing today. I think it's a lively topic, something that our nation is challenged with, a problem that we are going to delve into and see what we can do. We're going to talk about the critical role of K through 12 career and technical education, CTE, in preparing young students for success in the modern economy. You know, I serve, and in fact, I'm missing a committee hearing right now on small business. And for the last year, we've talked to small business and medium business, even large business. And if you ask them some of the challenges they're facing in today's economy, the vast majority hiring skilled employees that are ready to go to work. That's a challenge for many of them. And I believe if we're going to tackle this problem, we have to talk about flux capacitors. Flux capacitors, if you're over 30, you know that's the critical piece of a time machine that was featured in the movie Back to the Future. Back to the Future was a great zany movie in the 80s where Marty McFly and Doc Brown had their adventures, but they were trying to get back to the future. I think that's our mantra today, back to the future, because there was a time where there was a heavy focus on career and technical training in schools. This issue is personal to me. My dad was a shop teacher, was an industrial arts teacher. Think about this. He took over a school. His first job out of college was to be a shop teacher. His first day of class, he finds he's got 45 students, but no money, no budget, no materials, no tools, no anything, and he's got to teach these students. He went to the administration and says, how do I teach shop? They said, make do. Make do. What do you do without any money, without anything? Let me tell you what my dad did. And so many people have told me, your dad taught me shop, or your dad, was a great influence in my life. What he did was he brought his own toolkit to school and told each kid, find something that's broken at your house, bring it in, and we will fix it as a class. And that had such a lasting impact on so many people, and has prepared the people that do my plumbing and the people that fix my car. My dad taught them automotive shop. As a country, we've consistently undervalued the value of this type of education. And I think it started, ironically, in the 80s, where shop and other classes like that were removed. Here's the truth. 2/3 of Americans do not possess a bachelor's degree. 1 out of 3 students who start college never finish. If we don't recognize these realities and reflect them in the committee's priorities, employers will, in fact, change. They're already changing right now. Employees are moving as we speak. They're removing degree requirements for job applicants and moving towards skills-first hiring. LinkedIn, if you go to them, 2023 skills report found significantly fewer job postings are requiring degrees. More employers are explicitly hiring skills data than in previous years. If we're going to tackle this problem, collaboration between educational institution and industry partners will be key. And so we've established an all-star panel that we're about to hear from. In closing, I'll note that a few years ago, Discovery Channel's Dirty Jobs host, Mike Rowe, you know the man, Mike Rowe, appeared for this committee and said there's a problem we need to fix 7 years ago. He pointed at that time in 2017, there were 5.6 million open jobs if we just had some skills to fill them. Today, that number is 8.8 million jobs. So our all-star panel, I've met with each of you. Richard, we just had a conversation. In just a few minutes, we're going to hear from this all-star panel that comes from across the nation. Who's doing it well? Maryland and Florida. Who's doing great? But what is the industry leaders out there? We'll hear from Danny and Brandon, Richard and Kelly in just a few minutes. Our members, thanks for participating. Before we start, though, let's turn to our ranking member, Representative Bonamici, for an opening statement and her thoughts on today's hearing. Ms. Bonamici.
Thank you so much, Chair Bean, and thank you to the witnesses for joining us today. I'm very grateful that we're having this hearing on career and technical education, an issue that has broad bipartisan support. During the last 2 years, congressional Democrats and the Biden-Harris administration have been working hard on rebuilding the economy from the bottom up and the middle out. When we think about the Inflation Reduction Act, CHIPS and Science, the bipartisan infrastructure law, these are creating millions of new infrastructure, clean energy, and STEAM-related jobs. I say STEAM intentionally because integrating art and design into science, technology, engineering, and math means more creative and innovative students and workers. So these legislative victories that we're working on now will create a sustained demand for post-secondary STEAM and construction-based pathways, particularly with an eye on those who historically have been left out of these jobs and these opportunities. Investing in CTE, career and technical education, can help build a skilled pipeline for students when they get out of high school to meet this new demand. And to that end, we need CTE programs that are available to all students so they can explore careers that interest them, whether or not they require a 4-year degree or an industry-recognized credential. Is still beneficial. Named after Carl D. Perkins, who chaired this very committee, the Carl D. Perkins Career and Technical Education Act allows students to learn about competitive careers in information technology, health science, manufacturing, hospitality, to name a few. These opportunities are critical to helping students refine relevant skills and competencies, which frequently leads to industry-recognized credentials and increased earning potential. Under the Perkins Act, funding for CTE courses is commonly offered in public and private high schools with more than 80% of students completing at least one CTE credit. Additional funds are also directed into local secondary institutions or specialized high schools that focus on vocational industry specific training. And Chairman Bean, I really appreciate the story about your father, and I'm thinking today about all the CTE equipment, which most people are not likely to have, whether it be CD printers or labs or large industrial equipment. In recent years, schools and administrators are rethinking the value of CTE and the role it can play in helping students prepare for college or the workforce and keeping students engaged in school. In the past years, CTE was used as an alternative track for students less interested in college, or worse, those who are deemed usually inappropriately not college eligible. But it's now a valuable tool to bring much needed career and post-secondary exposure to all students. CTE is an important part of a well-rounded education, but not a substitute for it. CTE has become essential as students today are looking for hands-on learning opportunities and new rewarding careers, while employers are increasingly requiring some type of post-secondary education. Now, data shows that there's a 90% CTE student high school graduation rate versus a 75% average nationwide graduation rate. So we know CTE is valuable to keeping students in school, and if students with a low-risk profile enroll in a CTE program, they are 8 to 10 times less likely to drop out of school in the 11th and 12th grades. The Department of Education under President Biden has made career-connected learning through CTE programs a priority. Career-connected learning is centered on 4 evidence-based strategies that prepare students for career success: expanding work-based learning opportunities, increasing the use of dual enrollment for CTE courses, strengthening career navigation support, and requiring that CTE programs lead to valuable industry-recognized credentials. For example, the Department of Education has teamed up with the Department of Labor and the Department of Energy for its Raise the Bar initiative, which embeds these strategies into CTE programming and grants, so students are offered robust career exploration opportunities. So taken together, these strategies will help students gain career exposure and, importantly, learn soft skills. That's what we hear about when we're out talking to employers: responsibility, communication, collaboration, all of those things those are skills that students will gain regardless of what path they take. It will strengthen local economies and help employers fill vacancies. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I look forward to a productive and thoughtful discussion, and I yield back the balance of my time.
Thank you so much. Well done. Let's get to that all-star panel. I promised you our first witness, Danny Corwin, Executive Director of Harbor Freight Schools, Tools for Schools, located in Calabasas, California. as executive director, and we had a little chat this morning. He is in the fight to bring the next generation to jobs where it matters, where they can make a difference, and they can make big bucks. That's the other big thing. Mr. Corwin brings over 3 decades of leadership experience dedicated to expanding opportunities for K-12 public schools, and leader positions over 13 years with the California Charter Schools Association, including being CFO, Senior Vice President of Development, 4 years as Director of Career Academies. I told you all-star panel, and he's going to be our leadoff hitter. He serves on the boards for several nonprofit organizations and received his BA from UC Santa Barbara and a master's in education from UCLA. Welcome, Danny. Get to you in just a second. Next is Kelly Mosley. Kelly is from a special district in Florida, the 4th Congressional District, Clay County. She is the Career and Technical Education Supervisor for the Clay County School District in Northeast Florida, located in Green Cove Springs, Florida, where my wife is from. After graduating from the University of Florida, go Gators, in 2004, she taught agri-science at Wilkinson Junior High School and Lake Asbury Junior High School. In 2007, Ms. Mosley was named are you ready for this? The Florida Association of Career and Technical Education's New Teacher of the Year. She holds a master's degree in education leadership for the University of North Florida, and I want to explain something to you. Being from the state of Florida, this white stuff we're seeing outside, they call it snow. So it's new to me too. Kelly, we're glad to have you here. Our next questions, I will yield to Ms. Bonamici to introduce Mr. Kincaid.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Richard Kincaid is a Senior Executive Director of College and Career Pathways at the Maryland State Department of Education, where he runs the College and Career Pathways Office and implements the Blueprint for Maryland's Future, a program that increases funding for education by $3.8 billion each year over 10 years. Prior to joining the Maryland State Department of Education, he was a State Director of Career and Technical Education at the District of Columbia's Office of the State Superintendent of Education. He's also served as the Director of K-12 Curriculum and Instruction, Director of Career and Technical Education and Career Academies, Campus Administrator, and High School Debate Teacher for several school systems in Texas. He holds a bachelor's in human resources management, a master's in organizational development, and a master's in educational leadership, and is nearing completion of an a PhD in education in curriculum and instruction from the University of Virginia. Welcome, Mr. Kincaid.
Thank you, Ms. Bonamici, and welcome, Mr. Kincaid. Took the red line in this morning, so we're glad to have you here. Our last witness, Brandon Maybeal, who's got the second best looking beard here today. He is the Strategic Development Manager for Performance Contractors, Sugar Land, Texas. He's based out of Houston, spent some time in Louisiana as well. But let me tell you, he joined Performance Contractors in 2006 and was named Strategic Development Manager in 2021 after serving as the Texas Regional Business Development Manager for 11 years. He represents today Associated Builders and Contractors. They are the go-to industry for building America, and he's got thoughts that he'll share with us on what the next generation needs, what he needs, and his contractors all across America are. So, ladies and gentlemen and members, pursuant to Committee Rule 8C, all committee members who wish to insert written statements into the record may do so by submitting them to the committee clerk electronically in Microsoft Word, which is taught in Clay County schools in that format by 5 p.m. after 14 days from the beginning of the day's hearing, which is February 1, 2024. And without objection, the hearing record will remain open for 14 days after the date of this hearing to allow such statements and other extraneous materials referenced in the hearing to be submitted for the official record. Let's get to our all-star panel members. I kind of talked to you a little bit. We have this 5-minute. Your statements are already read. I read them. They're good. You got good closing statements and opening statements, but let's hear from you. Danny Corwin, you are recognized. Welcome to the committee.
Thank you. Good morning, Chairman Bean and Ranking Member Bonamici, and all the distinguished members of this subcommittee. My name is Danny Corwin, and I'm the Executive Director of Harbor Freight Tools for Schools, which is a program of the Smith Foundation. The Smith Foundation is a private foundation established by Eric Smith, the owner and founder of Harbor Freight Tools, a national tool retailer with over 1,400 stores and 28,000 employees. Grateful for a shop class that he took in high school and concerned that such programs were no longer available to many students around the country, Eric established Harbor Freight Tools for Schools to increase understanding, support, and investment in skilled trades education in U.S. public high schools. Our flagship initiative is the Harbor Freight Tools for Schools Prize for Teaching Excellence, which annually awards $1.5 million to 25 outstanding high school trades teachers across the country. We also created the Platinum Standard to outline the elements of excellence in skilled trades teaching and learning in U.S. public high schools. Some elements of particular importance include starting with an excellent teacher and having a relevant, aligned curriculum with in-demand career pathways, opportunities for work-based learning, all resulting in a high school diploma and an industry-recognized credential. We know that high school skilled trades education, broadly coursework focused in the construction, transportation, electrification, and manufacturing sectors, is critical to our nation's future. Our economic vitality rests on our ability to create a skilled workforce of highly trained professionals to design, build, and repair the very fabric of American life, from the roads we drive on, to the homes we live in, to the electrical grid and energy sources that power it all. In 2019, we commissioned opinion research to survey students, parents, and voters. The results reflected a desire for greater support and access to trades coursework. 83% of voters and 79% of parents said that school districts should make skilled trades education a high priority. Skilled trades education also leads to better educational outcomes for high school students. A study by Jobs for the Future showed that students who concentrate on skilled trades coursework are more likely to graduate from high school than their national peers. So why are excellent skilled trades classes not available to every American student? Some of the obstacles include a college for all mentality that has limited student options and created a stigma around trades careers. While increasing the percentage of students with access to college is laudable and a necessary goal, it has been the unintended effect of closing off options for students who may choose to pursue a different path. Other obstacles include a lack of alignment among K-12, post-secondary, workforce development, and industry sectors, an acute and growing shortage of skilled trades teachers, and finally the fact that spending on CTE makes up just 3% of the estimated overall funding for high school and middle school education in the United States. Despite these obstacles, many promising practices have developed across the country, some illustrated by the work of our prize-winning teachers. These include integrating skilled trades and traditional academic coursework, as demonstrated in Colorado, where Scott Burke co-founded Geometry and Construction, a program that integrates skilled trades and traditional academic coursework. The program teaches students both trades and geometry through the process of building affordable homes for families in need. Also, incorporating project-based learning to impart core concepts and teach professional skills. In Connecticut, Roxanne Amiot teaches automotive repair in a classroom that is a live, licensed repair facility where students work on customer vehicles in teams, learning every aspect of the professional process, from repairs to customer interaction and time management. Also, expanding opportunities for dual enrollment and college credit to give CTE students a head start on post-secondary education and careers. In Arizona, Cesar Gutierrez teaches precision manufacturing, where students can receive up to 25 college credits, nearly a full year of school toward their associate degree in industrial technology, thanks to a dual enrollment partnership with Pima Community College. Other promising practices include increasing work-based learning experiences to help students build technical and professional skills with workplace mentors, and leveraging out-of-school hours, flexible schedules, and summer learning to give students more access to hands-on skilled trades education. These promising practices can help prepare our students for success in the skill-based economy. Again, thank you for the opportunity to address the importance of skilled trades education, and I look forward to your questions.
Spot on, Danny Corwin. Well done. Thank you so much. I got a great question for you in just a few moments, but thank you so much. Our next witness, Kelly Mosley. I spent the morning with her, looking at her programs, and so Kelly Mosley, welcome. You are recognized.
Chair Bean, Ranking Member Bonamici, and members of the subcommittee. Thank you for inviting me here today and giving me the opportunity to share about career and technical education in Clay County, Florida. My name is Kelly Mosley, and I serve as one of 2 supervisors of career and technical education for Clay County District Schools, where our goal is to prepare students for college and careers. Clay County has nearly 120 career and technical education teachers in secondary schools. We are fortunate to have college and career coaches as part of our CTE team who work at all 7 high schools to support CTE students and teachers. Over 11,000 students are enrolled in CTE programs. There are 33 different CTE programs across the county, representing 11 career cluster areas. In Clay County, students are on a 6-period school day, and they can choose to take CTE courses as their electives, in addition to their academic courses. They can continue to take CTE courses that build upon each other as part of a CTE program of study throughout their high school career, or they can choose to explore another CTE program or elective. Exploratory CTE courses are offered at the junior high school level, where they can take semester-long CTE courses during their 7th and 8th grade school years. These courses relate to the courses offered at the high school level and are an important part of the workforce pipeline. Students in Clay County CTE programs prepare for a variety of nationally recognized industry certification exams from the Florida Department of Education's CAPE funding list. Last year, over 1,400 industry certifications were earned by Clay County students. We offer work-based learning opportunities such as CTSOs, pre-apprenticeships, school-based enterprises, internships, field trips, career fairs, and clinical experiences. We have 14 advisory boards where business and community partners advise, assist, and advocate for CTE programs, and they are the foundation of business partner involvement. Even though we are constantly trying to overcome the obstacle of the nationwide CTE shortage, our department collaborates with regional workforce partners to determine in-demand career fields as we develop new CTE programs. Recently, we have expanded health science, construction, information technology, and communication programs in the county, and we look forward to continuing to expand manufacturing programs in the future. Please continue to support CTE. CTE programs provide something for every student. CTE programs provide real-world, hands-on experiences to prepare students for college and careers. And CTE classes are the reason that many students come to school every day. CTE teachers have the unique opportunity to serve as their student's teacher for their entire high school career and forge relationships with students that impact student attendance, discipline, and academic achievement. I could share Clay County CTE student success stories for days. Stories of how a student ended up into a certain career because of a field trip they took, or how they earned a college scholarship because they were well prepared for the interview due to the mock interviews they had during their CTE program, or the job offer they were given because they were able to network with industry professionals, and that job turned into a career that helped them overcome generational poverty. I could share stories of how students who participated in internships were hired as permanent employees, and they are now model employees for local businesses where they're given tuition reimbursement, health benefits, and more. But I'll leave you with this one story of a former Clay County student who excelled in 2 different CTE programs while he was at Middleburg High School. He participated in 2 different CTSOs and the ACE mentoring program, where he met various people who would offer him employment in the construction industry. He was able to serve as the project manager who helped to build the latest hospital in Clay County and was able to experience a full circle moment 10 years later. He shared with current CTE students on a field trip to the construction site provided by business partners about the opportunities Clay County CTE provided him that led him to the team who was building the $2 million hospital that will provide services for our entire county. The numbers and statistics are important, but stories like these are even more important because they represent lives changed and communities impact. And I appreciate the opportunity to share our story with you today, and I look forward to answering your questions.
Kelly Mosley, well done. Thank you very much. He used to run DC schools. Now he's doing it for Maryland. Mr. Kincaid, you are recognized, my friend. Welcome.
Chairman Bean, Ranking Member Bonamici, and distinguished members of the committee, it is an honor to testify before you today. My name is Richard Kincaid, and I'm testifying on behalf of the Maryland State Department of Education, led by our interim state superintendent, Dr. Carrie Wright. In my role, I lead the Office of College and Career Pathways, a team that's responsible for ensuring that all students have access to high-quality career and technical education programming. While the state of Maryland is making excellent progress towards developing an educational system that's connected to the world of work, we still haven't done enough to communicate that career is the destination and college is one of the many pathways to get there. Today, I want to introduce you to a piece of groundbreaking legislation known as the Blueprint for Maryland's Future. Second, I want to share with you a competitive grant program called Maryland Works. And third, I want to emphasize the importance of rigor, quality, and cross-sector collaboration in the apprenticeship space. The Blueprint for Maryland's Future is a significant shift in the state's approach to education policy, governance, and accountability. This multi-billion-dollar state and local investment intends to transform Maryland's public education system into a world-class education model. For the purpose of my testimony today, I'll highlight Pillar 3 of the Blueprint, which requires that all students have equitable access to rigorous education that prepares them for college, career, and life. And more specifically to our work in CTE, mandates that all high school graduates earn an industry-recognized credential and/or complete the high school level of a registered apprenticeship program by the 2030-31 school year. This mandate requires a rapid statewide scaling of industry-recognized apprenticeship opportunities, both on the industry side and for our school systems. To achieve this, Maryland has implemented various strategies, including significant investment in expanding and improving CTE programming. Pillar 3 of the Blueprint parallels the intentionality of the Biden administration's 4 keys to unlocking career success: dual enrollment, work-based learning, workforce credentials, and career advising and navigation via career counselors, each of these elements becoming a critical piece of Maryland's CTE redesign over the next few years. To seed and scale the apprenticeship and industry-recognized credential elements of the Blueprint, MSD developed and launched Maryland Works, a competitive grant that leverages remaining ESSER III funding to make a substantial investment in establishing industry-aligned apprenticeship infrastructure across our state for all Maryland schools and business sectors. The Maryland Works grant allocates $12.2 million to 9 entities, including 6 local education agencies and 3 intermediaries, showcasing a national model for using recovery funds to build a talent pipeline in key workforce sectors. The grant emphasizes innovative transportation, unique high school scheduling, and diverse youth apprenticeships in career fields not traditionally associated with apprenticeships, fields such as finance, IT, biotechnology, life sciences, and education, and then also broadens the traditional intern or apprenticeship space in construction, hospitality, and healthcare. By the end of the current school year, Maryland is on track to nearly double the number of students in youth apprenticeship programs, with estimated counts exceeding 1,000 students by the end of the school year. Both large government agencies like the National Security Agency and NASA are hiring Maryland youth apprentices alongside small rural businesses like Westminster Automotive, all who recognize the value add our programs and apprenticeships bring to economic development within our state. In Maryland, the landscape of youth apprenticeship is evolving dynamically as well, shaped by the ambitious goals of the Blueprint for Maryland's Future and innovative approaches of programs like Apprenticeship Maryland and School to Apprenticeship initiatives. The Blueprint's goals underline the state's commitment to creating pathways that lead to good jobs, and Apprenticeship Maryland is a significant component of the effort, offering a framework that integrates academic and practical learning through on-the-job experiences. Following a similar route to approval as registered apprenticeships, Apprenticeship Maryland opportunities must be paid, aligned with the student's career pathway, must include concurrent and ongoing related instruction, and must be approved by the American Apprenticeship Training Council. Regardless of the specific model of apprenticeship that's developed and implemented, several quality assurance elements must be in place. First, collaboration among industry partners, educational institutions, and government agencies. 2, a review board to formally approve the apprenticeship. And 3, continuous evaluation of the apprenticeship program and individual experiences. In closing, I want to thank each of you for the commitment to develop meaningful national policy that strengthens CT education, industry-recognized credentials, and apprenticeship programs for the youth of our country. Our work in Maryland is both exciting and critical as we collectively work to prepare all students for success in the skills-based economy. Thank you.
Richard Kincaid, thank you so much. Right on time, my friend. Well done. And you've got a much healthier or lengthier testimony printed, and so thank you for summarizing it and bringing it in. Mr. Brandon Mobile, thank you. Is coming in from Texas, and I don't know if y'all get snow in Texas, so you're no stranger to what's on the ground up here, but we're glad to have you here. You are recognized. Welcome.
Chairman Bean, Ranking Member Bonamici, and members of the subcommittee, thank you for the invitation to testify this morning and for the opportunity to discuss the construction workforce and policies to expand critical career pathways for high school students across the country. My name is Brandon Mobile, and I am the Strategic Development Manager for Performance Contractors, headquartered in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and a member of Associated Builders and Contractors, better known as ABC. Today I'm testifying on behalf of ABC, a national construction trade association with 68 chapters representing more than 22,000 members. One of the key issues facing performance and contractors throughout the construction industry is the severe workforce shortage that threatens our ability to thrive and build critical construction projects on time and on budget. To ensure the success of our business and the industry as a whole, Performance knows that we must locate, encourage, and educate a new generation of skilled American workers and ensure these hardworking and determined individuals are able to participate in the American workforce and make a living right out of high school, if they so choose, at a time when they are most needed. Part of my role at Performance Contractors has been working with high schools and school districts to provide students with important exposure to the rewarding careers available through the skilled trades. While still facing outdated and inaccurate stigmas, a job in the skilled trades is vital work that requires a high skill level, intense focus, and a healthy work ethic. In the construction industry, highly skilled craft professionals are also able to obtain high-paying, high-demand jobs that are necessary in most every community throughout the country. We work to ensure that students are aware of the opportunities available to them and the worthwhile skills education that Performance Contractors can provide them if they choose to take this career pathway. To provide these services to our high schools, Performance Contractors has joined with contractors and construction users throughout the country, but particularly in the greater Houston area, to support and fund the Construction and Maintenance Education Foundation, a 501c3 education foundation. CMEF provides education to current and aspiring craft workers both at its own facility and through partnerships with local area high schools and community colleges. CMEF sponsors 62 area high schools, giving them access to the National Center for Construction Education and Research curriculum. Additionally, CMEF connects high schools with contractor sponsors who provide personal protective equipment, construction materials, guest speakers, and mentors to the high school programs, providing vital resources and important contacts and guidance to the students interested in the skilled trades. CMEF has a current operating budget of $270,000 a year for its high school program, which has allowed us to serve our students. We are always looking for new partnerships and inroads to let students, teachers, and parents know about these important opportunities and successful careers the skilled trades can provide. As a member of ABC, along with its 68 chapters and its 22,000 plus members, we continue to do our part to educate craft and management professionals using innovative and flexible learning models to build a safe, skilled, and productive workforce. A 2023 survey of ABC members indicated that 79% of ABC contractors have targeted outreach to high school students, high school graduates, and individuals with GED diplomas, and 65% have targeted programs to community college students and graduates. ABC members partner with and offer internships for college, university, and high school students, 74% and 62% respectively. And 84% of ABC contractors offer paid internships to college, universities, and high school students. The construction industry must attract more than 500,000 additional workers on top of our normal pace of hiring in order to meet the demand for labor, according to a 2023 model developed by ABC. With nearly 1 in 4 construction workers over the age of 55, retirements continue to whittle away at our construction workforce. Simply put, our industry cannot afford to miss this opportunity to expand critical career pathways for the future construction workers across the country. I look forward to discussing this important issue with the committee today and hopefully provide insight to the successful programs we have offered and the lives we have enriched through our high school programs. Thank you.
Mr. Mobile, thank you very much. And it's now the members' turn to question our all-star panel. Put the clock on me as I will start the questioning. Bonamici is on deck. Mr. Corwin, thank you for coming forward, and your credentials are on the front lines of recruiting and putting up programs. We talked a little bit, and it's in your statement that we're only spending 3% of school districts generally across America are focused on these types of vocational programs. Where did we go wrong? Why is that such an imbalance, and why is it so important to partner with industry to make things happen?
Thank you, Chairman Bain, and especially for your leadership on this critical issue. I think we referenced in our written testimony recent research on the College for All mentality and its connection to funding of CTE historically, and kind of the history of vocational education, which we know is fraught with complicated, it has a complicated history. I think the current moment that we're in right now, and from this esteemed panel, we know that there is great public support for CTE and skilled trades education. We also know that students that participate have great success, both completing high school and also attending college. So I think, when I consider priorities in terms of budgets, and you look at that 3% figure, budgets are aligned with values. And that's a question that we really have to ask ourselves. It's unfortunately that, you look at the 3% figure, and it would equate that our school systems and our education leaders who are hard at work every day are not providing the same value to students who participate in skilled trades and CTE.
We do have work to do, and that's why, and Ms. Bonamici brought up, we can't afford everything, but the partnering with industry is truly a big deal. Ms. Mosley, thank you so much for the hospitality. A few months ago, we spent the better part of the day together touring Clay County schools. I was blown away by how many programs, from vet tech programs to paralegal to, we were building tiny houses, we were rebuilding engines of all the different classes today, and your success is truly amazing. I want to elevate what you've been doing. We had a conversation about how early is too early. You have a program of exposing 7th graders. Talk about that.
In Clay County, we have our 7th and 8th grade students are in junior high schools, and we offer exploratory CTE courses that are semester-long courses that students can take as their electives in addition to their academic courses. And so they can choose up to 4 of those by the time that they're in 7th and 8th grade. And those courses expose them to different careers, and they also expose them to the opportunities that are at each high school. And so we make sure that the courses that are offered at the feeder junior high schools are the same ones that are offered at the high schools. And so we make sure that those students are able to go to the high schools and visit those programs. We also share with them, when they're in 8th grade, we have freshman expos that the parents can come to the high schools and they can see all of the different programs at the high schools, as well as we have business partners and our post-secondary partners as well, so that the families can see the entire pipeline from junior high school through high school, and then career opportunities for them and post-secondary opportunities for them as well.
Very good. I think that introduction is helping break down the stigma that there's so many options, and your story about one of your former students building the hospital is truly a big deal. The stigma is something that ABC has been worried about. We talked a little bit about this, Brandon, earlier, and you say it's a real problem. Are we breaking down the stigma? Are we making progress?
We are trying, and part of the reason I'm here today is hopefully to further break down that stigma. Everybody thinks construction is dirty, it's hot, or it's cold, it's unsafe. One of the things we're doing with ABC is our STEP safety management program, and STEP, Platinum, and Diamond, which are the highest level STEP participants, are actually now 800% safer than the construction industry average. And so bringing those safety numbers down, making it, using technology to introduce students to new ways of doing the construction work is very important to break those stigmas. And even things as simple as providing new B-roll to local news stations, because when they talk about construction, they tend to use outdated workers doing unsafe things that are really no longer acceptable. And so things as simple as that are steps that we are taking as an organization to reduce that stigma, and really trying to get in front of the guidance counselors, the parents, and the students to talk about the rewarding careers in the industry.
10-4. I think what will break that stigma too is money. There's big money in these jobs, including I just met with a dealership that repairs trucks, and kids, young people can make big money, 80 to 100,000, 120,000 repairing trucks if they'll just invest a few years there. So thank you all for kicking things off. I now will recognize Mr. Norcross from New Jersey, who is recognized for a series of questions or thoughts. Mr. Norcross.
Thank you, Chairman, and certainly to you and the ranking member for this hearing, preparing students for success. I started my apprenticeship in 1979, and it doesn't happen very often that you go from the construction site to Congress. So this is near and dear to me, and certainly, more importantly than that, it is to our nation and what we need to do. The one thing that comes to mind typically when we look about the next generation of worker, I call it the big three. First and foremost is the interest of the student, whether it's 7th grade or earlier. How do we know what is available to you? The second one is information on what is available, whether it's construction, machinist, auto mechanic, the list goes on and on. And the third, and probably in many ways the most significant, is the educational stigma that goes along with this. You know, the idea that college for all, or the only way to make it in America is through college. You know, that stigma is incredibly difficult. And quite frankly, there are three areas that I guess contribute to this is so often teachers, counselors who tend to push people into the college mode because that is the way we do it. But it's also society and what we value. But what we do here in the United States is very different than the German model, the model that we have in Switzerland. I just was on my way down to christen a ship in Key West, and I was sitting next to a young lady who started a conversation. She was a teacher and talking about her children, and somehow we started talking about what they're going to do. And she told me this story, you know, her one son's going to college, and the second one, it's not sure what he wants to do. And she said to me, we have to give our children permission to look at what they consider non-traditional areas. That going to a VOTEC school was for losers. So, Mr. Kincaid, how do we start to address those three big issues? First of all, to let students know that there is something else out there, get them the right information, and most importantly, how do we address mom and dad who think the only way is through college?
I appreciate your question, and I think this is something that we need to highlight nationally. And those three areas that you talked about, you know, the student and information to parents, and then also this sort of national stigma, all sort of go hand in hand. We didn't enter this world of college as the only option overnight. It was investment in that particular strategy, widespread on a national scale, and it was also an incredible marketing campaign, right? To really shift us in our mindset into that direction. And I think it would be wise for us as a community of career and technical education professionals to model that very similar strategy. So where are we investing our dollars, and is it enough to make sure that we are creating the workforce that we need and that our students and families deserve? And also at the same time, are we being incredibly clear in leading on the messaging that we are providing to all of the stakeholders, families, communities across the country? From the student and the parent perspective, this is where schools and state agencies like the one that I work for can do a better job. We need to be communicating the benefits of career and technical education and talk about the value that apprenticeship can bring as a pathway to a job. Unfortunately, a number of companies, have started to lead this effort when it really should have been a partnership to lead the effort of communicating that not every job requires a 4-year degree. Most jobs you can learn and earn through an apprenticeship model, and so it's on us to communicate that information, as early as middle school and perhaps even earlier in upper elementary school, so that students can begin seeing what they can become in the world of work. So career counselors is something in the state of Maryland that we've doubled down on to help make this connection and this communication to those families.
I certainly appreciate that. our Department of Defense is literally spending tens of millions of dollars to attract and educate that next generation of shipbuilding. So the idea that those instead of college, no, it's those and college, whichever way you want to go, but giving their permission. The idea that it is not worth it. I have 3 kids, doctor, a lawyer, and an electrician. Only one of them has this house paid for and has a retirement fund that we all would be proud of. Anybody want to guess which one that is? See, electricians. With that, I yield back.
Thank you very much, Mr. Norcross. Up next is going to be McLean from Michigan. She'll be followed by Ms. Bonamici from the great state of Michigan. Representative McLean, you are recognized.
Thank you, Chairman Bean. Always a pleasure to serve on your committee, and thank you all for being here today. I think it is a critical topic for the nation, for our children, for everyone. So I really appreciate you being here. Mr. Maybiel, I've seen firsthand the work conducted by Associated Builders and Contractors when I visited Florida, your East Coast chapter. The concerning part, I think for me, when I spoke with some of your educators and whatnot and apprentices there, the average age was about 28, which is not necessarily bad, but if we could get that average age down and we could begin to incentivize earlier, I think that would help. So if Congress incentivized middle school, high school to create skilled trades programs, so to speak, for students, do you think that would obviously have a positive effect on our workforce in the future? And I'd like you to talk about, if so, the criticalness and the importance of the incentivizing to these high school and middle schools and how we do that.
Yes, I think it would have a huge effect, and thank you, Congresswoman McLean. You really can't understate how important it is, and some of the most impactful programs we have are things like we just did a middle school girls construction camp where they got to come in and actually put their hands on some tools and to introduce those things. Like I said in my opening statement, we need to hire 500,000 more construction workers a year on top of our replacement rate, and so every available worker is important to us, and giving those opportunities to high school students and to middle school students can only help. I can tell you in the state of Texas, where before Senate Bill 5 was passed in 2012, high school students would not get graduating credit for vocational training. We only had 3 high schools that would work with us in the greater Houston area. Once Senate Bill 5 was passed in 2012, we now have 62 high schools and a waiting list because we are simply out of people and resources to provide services to more high schools. So when you incentivize it, when you build it, they will come. The CTE directors are changing course on this, and they really want our input and our help.
What are the obstacles and hurdles that are not allowing incentives? So what do you see that we can have an impact on to remove those obstacles and hurdles? So 1, what are they? And 2, how do we fix them?
So the biggest obstacle for a high school or a school district is going to be financial, and it's expensive to start a training program, and that's why we provide so much in the way of materials and personal protective equipment and construction equipment, because it's very expensive to start this type of program. And so I think that's where the most impactful incentives would be for high schools to really get into CTE and craft education.
Okay. Can education providers be nimble and responsive like business and industry, right? I come from the business background. We have to be able to change on a dime. Let's just look at what happened during COVID. We had to adapt and adjust, and we had to do it rather rapidly. Do you believe that they can do the same thing? And especially collaborative with companies and trade schools?
Some of them absolutely can, and we see it time and time again. We have some great school districts in the Houston area that work with industry and that are very quick to respond to changes in the industry, changes in technology, and they want our feedback. They want to hear what's going on because they want to graduate students that we can hire. And so I think they absolutely can. So
in your opinion, you believe that schools and educators can adapt quickly, right?
Yes,
okay,
ma'am, absolutely.
Wonderful. Ms. Mosley, efforts to develop programs that that leave high school students with credentials to enter trades have proven to be efficient getting and effective getting students into lifelong careers, right? We've talked about that. There's a supply, there's a demand, there's a need, right? How have you developed the CTE pipeline in your schools to get students with marketable credentials into registered apprentice programs?
So in the Clay County School District, we actually have
I'm sorry, I can't.
In the Clay County School District, we have two different pre-apprenticeship programs with the Northeast Florida Builders Association and the Electrical Training Alliance, JAX. And so those students take part of that, and then they are able to get preferential entry into the registered apprenticeship program. And they are actually, those business partners work very closely with our schools. And so that's one of the things that we're doing is to participate in the pre-apprenticeship program. And we've also received grants from the state through the Pathways to Career Opportunities grants.
So the business education partnership has worked.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Up next will be our ranking member, Bonamici, followed by Mr. Thompson, our ranking member from Oregon.
Thank you,
Ms.
Mr.
Bonamici,
Chairman.
you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to the witnesses. And I'm glad you're back, Mr. Thompson. Mr. Thompson and I co-chair the CTE caucus and certainly understand the value of preparing students today for the industries of tomorrow. CTE programs offer a strong bridge between the classroom and good-paying, in-demand careers, and I mentioned in my opening statement, and I know Mr. Corwin did as well, that they also help students stay in school. My home state of Oregon is a leader in making CTE programs accessible. In fact, we have very high rates of students participating. CTE is in nearly every one of our high schools and is in every single one of our community colleges. I'll give you a couple of examples that I'm proud of in St. Helens High School, which is in rural Columbia County, Oregon. They have 7 different programs, including early childhood education, culinary arts, auto repair. People from town bring their cars to this high school to get fixed. They also have a manufacturing class, which is great because they're very close geographically to the Oregon Manufacturing Innovation Center, which has research and development as well as advanced and additive manufacturing. And to talk about exposure, this year OMIC had 700 high school students from the region come through on Manufacturing Day to see what manufacturing really looks like. Then over on the Oregon coast, Warrenton High School, I've spoken with educators and students there about CTE. They're really excited because they have classes in fisheries and fish hatchery management. They appreciate the Perkins funding to help with equipment. And then in Hillsboro, Oregon, this is exciting because they have the first in the state registered youth apprenticeship program where students earn and learn advanced manufacturing in partnership with the city of Hillsboro and the semiconductor industry. So we're doing some really great things. We just need to expand those opportunities. Mr. Kincaid, in your testimony, you mentioned the blueprint for Maryland's future and the 5 pillars of that program. So the third pillar, college and career readiness, aims to prepare all students for both college and the workplace. So how does Maryland use CTE programming to meet these goals? And why is CTE a useful approach to preparing students, not only for a job out of high school, but also for college?
Yep, I appreciate that question. And it's something that I think Maryland in particular, but a number of states nationally, really grapple with to make sure that all students have access to CTE for all of the benefits that we've been talking about already today. Within the state of Maryland, the blueprint becomes a critical sort of North Star for us because we recognize that every student deserves an opportunity to move into the world of work and have a good job. And it's our job as educators to make sure that we've provided them with every opportunity and knowledge of every pathway in order to get there. And so one of the unique things about the blueprint is it removes sort of this notion that CTE and apprenticeship is locked into some of the more traditional fields that have already been mentioned this morning, things, collectively known as the trades, right? And when we think about apprenticeship and CTE, oftentimes it's the trades that are sort of elevated within that field. And Maryland is really taking a different approach to that in making apprenticeships available in many of the non-traditional areas that I spoke about in my testimony. We want to make sure that students, regardless of what field they want to go into, know how to get to that field through a number of different pathways available to them, of
That's
which
great. I don't
college
want
is
to cut you off,
one.
Mr. Kincaid, but I have another question, and the clock is ticking.
Yes, ma'am.
So we know this is a popular topic. For most members, regardless of their party, support CTE programming, especially for high school students. But despite that support, we've seen federal funding through the Perkins Act decline over the past 4 decades. And I mentioned earlier, some of the equipment is very expensive. And, some of us who came from state legislatures or local government or school boards know there's often not extra funding in the school district budget for this kind of equipment. It really makes a difference. So in 1980, for example, funding for CTE was at $2.6 billion after adjusting for inflation in 2021 dollars. Today it's $1.3 billion, right? So it's about a half of what it once was, even though the number of students in secondary schools has increased. So what would it mean to have additional Perkins funding? And what would Maryland do with an increase in funding in CTE through the Perkins program?
Yeah, I'm really glad that you highlighted that statistic going all the way back to 1980, because we have seen a dramatic reduction in funding for these programs, even as interest and enrollment into these programs has increased, in particular over the last couple of years. What this requires states to do, like Maryland and larger states like my home state of Texas, is to use state money to backfill to create these level of experiences that are expected not only of our families, but also for our business partners and our economy in general. And so using Perkins as a lever to reinvest additional funding into these programs would be a game changer for places like Maryland that rely not only on federal funds to move this agenda forward, but also to make sure that we are well aligned with business and industry. The
That's great.
additional
It's a tremendous investment, but my time has expired, so I'm going to have to yield back. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
It's a great question. Thank you, Ms. Bonamici. Our lineup is Thompson, then Hayes. Let's go to the great state of Pennsylvania. Chair Thompson, you are recognized.
Chairman, thanks so much. Thanks for calling this hearing today. As co-chair of the Bipartisan Congressional Career and Technical Education Caucus alongside Ranking Member Bonamici, I've seen firsthand how federal CTE programs successfully help job seekers climb the next rung on the ladder of opportunity. From agriculture to the arts, and that's why I spell STEAM, S-T-E-A-A-M, throw agriculture in there. From marketing to manufacturing, CTE programs work to develop America's most valuable resource, its people. With more than 12 million students currently enrolled in CTE programs across the country and nearly 9 million vacant jobs, we must continue to strengthen federal investment in CTE programs and connect educators with industry stakeholders. Ms. Mosley, thank you very much for being here today and for all your work you do in ensuring the success of CTE programs in Clay County. In your testimony, I couldn't help but notice as the chair of the House Agriculture Committee that you offer CTE programs in agriculture. I've seen many of these CTE-based agriculture programs succeed throughout the country, including in my district. Can you talk a little more about these programs that you oversee and what more we can be doing from a CTE perspective to inspire the next generation of American agriculturalists?
Thank you for your question, Representative Thompson. And I'm sitting here actually with a agriculture education FFA portfolio because agriculture is my background. My family, I'm raising my daughter on our 6th generation family farm. I was an agriculture teacher before I came to the county office. And so whenever I first started teaching agriculture in Clay County, there was only 3 of us. And so now we have 11 agriculture programs across the county, and we have them in places like Oakleaf High School, where we teach agriculture biotechnology, and we also teach agribusiness management and leadership. And that high school is actually a suburban high school. And whenever we built that high school, the director at the time, people questioned him like, "You're going to put an agriculture program in a suburban area?" And he said, "Absolutely. Every student needs to have the opportunity to explore an industry that it meets the most basic needs of our people of food, clothing, and shelter." And so whenever I was at Oakleaf High School, I actually had the opportunity to serve on a committee for selecting their FFA officers last year. And over in there, whenever I would ask them, "What is FFA and agriculture education meant to you?" they would talk about, "I had no idea all the different careers that were out there." And through field trips and their work with their CTSO FFA, it has exposed them to all kinds of different careers. They also talked about how they found a home in their FFA chapter, in their agriculture program, because Oak Leaf High School is a very big school, and many of them were 9th and 10th grade students who didn't have their place at high school, but once they joined that agriculture program, they were they found a place and they were excited to be there. We're also very fortunate in Clay County to have a lot of support from our agriculture organizations, like our county fair, our farm bureau. In fact, our county fair has a livestock auction where the students can take their supervised agriculture experiences there to the auction, and they generate over $500,000 through our livestock auction through our county fair that students are able to use for their future education. So those are just a few ways in Clay County that we've supported agriculture education.
Very good. Well, thank you very much. We those youth livestock auctions are I buy a lot of critters to support those kids. That's really important. I always like to say that one of the reasons CT programs are so successful is because students complete them with a certificate or diploma in one hand and multiple job offers in the other. And the only way to make that a reality, however, is by ensuring that those who sign the front of a paycheck, local employers and businesses, are involved in these programs. So, Ms. Mosley, if local businesses want to get involved in CT programs to address their workforce needs, what steps should they take to establish a connection?
They should reach out to their local CTE leadership or their high schools, and they should get involved in advisory boards. We have 14 different advisory boards, and their job is to advise, assist, and advocate for CTE, and that's really the foundation of business partnerships for Clay County. And through those advisory boards, we talk about the trends and issues that they're seeing in their industry and how we can address them in the school district and through our teachers. So part of that advisory board also has post-secondary, it also has those teachers, and so they should become part of an advisory board because they help direct that work of mock job interviews, guest speakers, field trips, and a lot of those work-based learning opportunities that we're able to provide.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. My time is about to expire.
Thank you very much. Well done. Well done. Our lineup will be Hayes, then Miller. Let's go to Connecticut, where Representative Hayes is recognized for a question. Good morning.
Thank you, and thank you to our witnesses for being here today. I would first like to say congratulations to Ms. Mosley on being Florida New Teacher of the Year for CTE. It's kind of a big deal. And also, you have no idea what you just did for the chairman's heart by speaking to ag. I brought him to my district to visit our VOAG school, and I have been pushing for those same things, so thank you so much for articulating that so beautifully. I'm pleased to be here with all of you today discussing how this committee can expand access to career and technical education. I'm a teacher by profession, and I am the biggest champion for CTE training, for allowing students multiple pathways to achieve the American dream, because 15 years in the classroom, talking to thousands of students, I know that college is not for everyone. Last Congress, we passed the Bipartisan Infrastructure Investments and Jobs Act and the Inflation Reduction Act, which together are expected to add millions of new infrastructure, clean energy, and manufacturing jobs. These high-wage, high-skilled jobs will require a robust pipeline of talented workers graduating from our high schools, so it's imperative that we make the investments and do this work. Mr. Kincaid, we have heard a lot about CTE staffing shortages, and the most common concern we hear is that qualified, experienced technical instructors have a high turnover rate because of the salaries and competing with the private sector. I can also tell you from my personal experience, it was always very difficult to bring in experienced business partners to teach in the classrooms because we had the barriers with certification and credentialing them to be in a classroom. We can't just have people standing in front of students who have read about these things. We need some people with real-world experience who have led factories, who have led automotive shops, who have actually worked in the business world to really teach students what to expect when they enter these professions. So can you address what you've learned about how to address those staffing shortages and just the barriers to credentialing certified professionals to stand in front of students?
Yes, thank you for the question. And it's no secret there is a national shortage, particularly within CTE, of high qualified teachers. And what it's going to require us to do is to think differently about how we staff classrooms, particularly in skilled areas like CTE. And so leaning into my past experience in the District of Columbia competing with, a hospital trying to hire a nurse to teach in a nursing program is problematic. We will never be able to meet the salary requirements, but that skill that that particular person would bring to the table, students would benefit from immensely. So we had to create a partnership with Trinity Washington University at the Area Technical Center that was recently opened in DC, where teachers in front of high school students come from the university, the post-secondary space. And that partnership has generated numerous benefits, not only for DC and the students, but also in honing that faculty's sort of, grooming the future. States have to begin looking at valuing work experience of people coming from industry and figuring out different ways and pathways to certification so that these highly experienced folks can be in our classrooms. In the meantime, it's teachers and administrators reaching out to those in industry and making sure that they're involved in the classroom, making sure that they are integrated very intentionally into the work that we're doing within the CTE space.
That's actually a terrific model because students would benefit from someone who has 1 foot in the classroom and 1 foot in the field, who is continually updating their skill set and seeing the challenges that are faced in the world today. I heard the chairman mention Microsoft Word and computer programming. I can tell you at my high school, generally, the students knew more about programming than any of the teachers who were teaching those classes because they were literally in real time experiencing it. Finally, you talked about some barriers for underserved students who access pathways. In the last 30 seconds, can you tell us how you've addressed, helping minorities, girls, students from communities that would historically be underserved?
Yep, and so, absolutely, in the CTE space, we have looked almost ad nauseum at gender and race gaps as we're guiding students into pathways. I would say that as we think about apprenticeships and retooling students for this skills-based future, things like transportation and economics become the equity issues that we're going to have to solve next.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Lunch is another one. I appreciate your
yes.
your testimony.
Ms.
I
Hayes,
yield
thank
back.
you. And for the record, Ms. Hayes was recognized as the 2016 National Teacher of the Year. How about that? So our lineup will be Miller, DeSagne, and then Fox. Let's go to the state of Illinois, where Representative Miller is recognized for questions.
Thank you, Chairman. Mr. Mobile, you mentioned in your testimony that Associated Building and Contractors chapters offer more than 800 work-based learning programs across the country. Could you say more about how employers support CTE students seeking to move from high school into careers in the skilled trades with the skills and education they need to build thriving careers?
So some of the things that we are doing is providing mentorship both to the instructors and to the students and showing them pathways, helping them to develop the soft skills that they need to get into a career in the industry. We do things like construction boot camps that are really focused on getting to work on time and learning the things that you're going to need to know on day one. One of the funnest things we're doing now are National Signing Days, whereas these high school students are graduating, we have a bunch of contractors come up and we put the hats on the table and they get to put the hat on and say, I'm going to Performance Contractors or I'm going to wherever. And so just showing them the path and then also teaching them about the path from once they get into the many different career paths that exist for an entry-level construction worker, depending on where they choose to pursue further education.
Yeah, I love that. Ms. Mosley, could you tell us more about how schools in Clay County establish businesses that give students hands-on experience which align with career and technical education programs?
In Clay County, we have several school-based enterprises. For example, in our early childhood education programs for students who want to become teachers, we have child care centers where there's actually preschools on campus and our CTE teachers teach our high school students how to work with those students. We also, for example, have ViStar Credit Union and Garber Automall that they have businesses there in our school. We actually have 4 VyStar credit unions that have branches inside of our schools that students, as part of the business program, could apply to be interns, and then they can work in that on-school credit union branch. Garber Automall came to us a couple years ago, and they said, we have a need for technicians. And the age of our employee, they're going to retire, and we have this need. And so they said, but we need them to have manufacturer specific certifications. And so we explained to them that the industry certifications that we offer our students have to come off the Florida Department of Education CAPE funding list. So they said, well, what if we send somebody after school to work with the students on those manufacturer-specific certifications? So we have students that apply to that, and they work there after school with Garber Automall employees. And there, when we talk about barriers for students, they also take them to Garber, and there were some students, so they work a couple days a week at the school and then a couple days at Garber, but they found that there were some students that didn't have access there, so we worked with them to help shuttle them. They provided a Garber shuttle after school, and then the parents could pick them up from Garber. We also have culinary programs that operate on-site restaurants and catering programs, as well as our agriculture program has a floral design business. And we have a lot of business programs that have graphic designs that business partners can give them projects like, hey, we need a new logo or something like that, as well as printing different materials. So those are just a few of the school-based enterprises that we have in the Clay County School District.
I commend you for the work you're doing, thinking outside the box and looking for solutions for our students and for our businesses to fill the needs that they have. Do you have early dismissal for students that want to actually go work somewhere?
If students have room in their schedule where they can, and they already have their credits, then they can leave and they can do some of the internships. Like, for example, with Clay County Utility Authority, they came to us and they said, we have an issue, again, similar to Garber, where we have an aging workforce and we don't have water treatment operators, wastewater treatment, a lot of our programs. And so we actually have an internship program with them where the students apply to work at Clay County Utility, and they're actually earning hours that they can get towards their license for the water and wastewater treatment plant. And so a lot of our students, when they're seniors, they only have a couple of credits left, and the school counselors and our college and career coaches work closely with them to have those classes at the beginning of the day, so then they can leave and go work with our business partners like Clay County Utility Authority.
That's fantastic. I'd love to hear how flexible you are. Do you know if these opportunities are common in schools across the rest of the state and country?
I think they're very common in Florida for sure. There's a lot of examples around the state of where business partners have worked with different school districts to provide internships and different work-based learning opportunities.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's go to California, where Mr. Desanye is recognized for thoughts or questions. Mr. Desanye.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You're always welcome in California, where the temperature is considerably higher right now. Mr. Kincaid, I wanted to talk to you about your youth apprenticeship programs. In California, historically, 50s, 60s, when we had an aerospace industry and a lot of infrastructure for that, part of the culture in high school was career tech. And we moved away from that like the rest of the country, somewhat, I think, because our UCs, CSUs, and community colleges were so successful, but also because those degrees were the knowledge-based economy. Now we find ourselves we want to do both. Recently talking to my friends in the California building trades and my local building trades, and they told me a lot of their members are college graduates who are actually going back. So I wanted you to talk to me a little bit about your youth apprenticeship programs in Maryland. In my area that I represent, it's the industrial area in Northern California. We've got 5 oil refineries. We're transitioning as we want to move our energy sources. But one of the things that's been very successful with Republican and Democratic governors, back when we had those, Governor Schwarzenegger in particular, where we were opening academies. And in a lot of the lower income schools where the industrial belt is, I found when I visited those that the whole school knew about these 25 kids who were getting apprenticeship standards, where companies like Chevron was working with the building trades. Can you speak to your experience about the value of people who are young and trying to decide what kind of careers we're being in, but also in disadvantaged communities where it's more of a challenge?
Yeah, in Maryland, we really launched headfirst into youth apprenticeships really around 2016 with the launch of Apprenticeship Maryland, and the focus was the youth apprenticeship model. And so I feel like we are making, great progress in making sure that students know that this is a pathway available to them. Mentioned in my testimony, we'll end the year with about 1,000 students, which is nearly double what we had a year ago, at this point. So with youth apprenticeship programs, one of the things that we've been very particular about in Maryland is we don't want it to be sort of an elevated internship, nor do we want it to be a watered-down apprenticeship program. And so it's sort of finding the balance between making sure it's a valuable experience that industry also values, because that's where students are moving towards, right? But also giving students the flexibility to still be high school kids. And, we hear a lot about the German and Swiss models, and, we are modeled differently in our education system. And so, while we still value sort of the same direction that those other countries are heading towards, we need to really make sure that the apprenticeship programs that we develop help kids get to the world of work, knowing that they're still students. I would speculate that moving forward in Maryland, we put some guardrails up. Youth apprenticeship typically ends at graduation. We want to make sure that there's some commitment with employers post-graduation so that students have the ability to continue on within that craft, within that vocation, post-graduation. And so really leaning into what are some of the best characteristics of a full registered apprenticeship while still valuing the fact that a lot of these kids are 16 and 17 years old, right?
And interesting part is when I was in the legislature in California, we went and talked to the Germans and the Swiss, and one of the Germans said to me, it's funny you're asking us how we do this because we copied you in many ways post-World War II. So it's interesting how these things change. In the energy field, it's important these young people get the training, but the continuous training. So again, the German model where people are going back to work. So somebody who's working in an oil refinery gets a good paid job right now in California, but they've got to be prepared to maybe move out, or at least the next generation. How do you give that flexibility? And dual enrollment also was a question I wanted to ask you about, where young people trying to decide, and the dynamic that I mentioned where people with bachelor's degrees are going back into trade-like work. So being flexible, but also realizing this is continuous education for this workforce.
High-quality CTE programs integrate things like an industry credential, a work-based learning experience like internship or apprenticeship, and college credit, right? And so in Maryland, we lean into all of those things with the blueprint, and we want to make sure that students, when they graduate, have the ability to move into any one of the pathways, and they are well-equipped to do so, right? I would be remiss if I didn't mention that in order for an apprenticeship or any other sort of CTE program to function effectively, there has to be a demolishing of silos, right? Education and industry must work hand in hand. All of these players have to be at the table so that we can make sure that education is responsive to the very quick needs of industry, but also industry knows the importance of the education that students are receiving, and that education is being crafted in such a way that it's going to make a successful student going into the world of work.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Sonnier. Yeah, our lineup is Fox, then Owens. It's a pleasure always to welcome the big chair of Education and Workforce, based in, she's got just a tremendous education background herself. Dr. Fox, you are recognized.
Thank you. I know you mean that metaphorically, so thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate our witnesses being here today. This is a topic that's always near and dear to my heart. Mr. Corwin, you mentioned how high school skilled trades education leads to better educational outcomes. As schools continue to confront COVID-related learning loss, can you discuss how high-quality CTE programs can re-engage students in their learning, particularly for students who may have fallen off track during the pandemic?
Thank you for your question, Chair Fox, and I think it's a really critical one. We've heard a little bit about the educational outcomes that CTE students achieve, but we've also heard that oftentimes high school students...
Will you pull the mic closer to yourself?
Certainly. We've also heard that high school students often come to school for their CTE class because it's engaging their relationship with their teacher and that it's hands-on. And that's what so many of our talented students want to do. We've surfaced some research on the socio-emotional benefits for skilled trades that you reference in terms of COVID. And a recent study of high school students in Sonoma County by Youth Truth found that students who participate in CTE classes or work-based learning are full quartile more likely to report taking pride in their schoolwork, and also more than twice as likely as those who don't take such classes to say that there's an adult at school that they can talk to when feeling upset, stressed, or having problems. As a program of a foundation, Harbor Freight Tools for Schools, one of the things that we take pride in doing is making small grants to teachers, and especially during the time of COVID, we were looking for ways to, we asked teachers, how can we help in terms of bringing kids back into the fold and making them feel like they're a meaningful part of their coursework. And they came up with ideas to engage their students using their skills and their talents in their community. So one example was from Freedom, Wisconsin, where the students actually refurbished a trailer for a veteran to have that as a space where he could live. And that process of giving students, kind of empowering them into design programs, our Gen Z population really want to find meaning in their schoolwork, and that type of community impact is really critical as well.
Yeah, these are principles I think we've always known, but they don't always get applied. Ms. Mosley, I've been fighting my whole career to break down stigmas associated with skills education. Could you talk about how your school district is integrating skills education into the general high school curriculum and promoting skills education as a viable pathway?
Thank you for your question, Chair Fox. In Clay County School Districts, industry certifications are incredibly important to the school's grade from the Florida Department of Education. And they're a win-win-win for everybody because it impacts the school's grade. It is great credential for the students after they graduate high school, and it brings back bonus funding to the schools. And so with those industry certifications, many of our schools highlight students who have completed a career pathway or they have earned an industry certification at graduation with cords that the students are so excited to wear. They're recognized at senior awards. We even have one high school, Middleburg High School, where they have the CTE Student of the Week, as well as they have the Scholar of the Week, the Citizen of the Week, and Athlete of the Week. So career and technical education students are held in the same regard as students in other venues within the school. And so we believe that that is one of the ways that it is held in high regard and that we are promoting the pathways for those students.
Thank you very much. Mr. Mobile, many skills education programs offer students an opportunity to earn industry-recognized credentials along with their high school diploma. Can you discuss some of the credentials students are able to earn through the National Center for Construction Education and Research, and how this impacts their career opportunities post-graduation?
Yes, Dr. Fox. So the NCCR offers credentials for most construction trades. And the beauty of the NCCR credential is that it's portable and that it's stackable. And so it's recognized throughout the country, and it really helps the student because the construction workforce is often transient. They go from job to job and from area to area. But because of the NCCR and the way the training is set up, they could take a semester with my company, they could move on to one of my competitors and take their second semester, move on again and take their third semester, and really take that credential anywhere through the country. So it really opens up avenues for their future career growth because it's such a portable credential.
Thank you very much. I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Dr. Fox. Our final presenter, unless somebody else sneaks in, is a friend, a colleague. He's also the chair of Higher Education Subcommittee. Mr. Owens from Utah, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, as crazy as sometimes Congress seems to be, this is one area it looks like we're all on the same page. And it's been very rewarding to hear how, as a bipartisan process, we're going to address this. And I thank you for what you're doing. It's such an important piece of make sure our kids have a great future. I've long been a supporter of educational choice and freedom and allowing children or students to excel in the fields of study that most align with their interests. I'm proud to be a proponent of the career and technical education and as one of the multiple pathways of future success. I've submitted for the record a document from the Western Governors Association that highlights the importance of CTE, especially in the Western states, and encourage Congress to take action to strengthen the workforce through a robust support of CTE. I have a unique background. My dad was a college professor, and Ms. Mosley, he was actually an educator in agriculture. He got his PhD in Ohio State, 40 years. And so I know how exciting it is when you can actually work with your hands and have the ability to move forward and have a career. So I did appreciate being in that environment. One of the things that we was talked about before is how do we get here where we have to now try to change the way we consider careers. You know, because it's been decades of investments and marketing that there's been one way to make this all happen. And part of this is what we're doing in the K through 12. If we have counselors that are coming out and not teaching these options, or counselors that will not, or schools will not allow these options to be even taught or discussed, it causes a problem. And so I guess I'm going to start with you, Ms. Corwin. How do we address that? We talk about schools being nimble. We talk about the supply and demand. We all know that we have such a great sector of opportunities for kids that are not being trained and taught. How do we make sure that in K through 12, what is the incentives that we might think of that we can have these counselors being able to show that there are other options other than four-year college?
Thank you, Congressman Owens. It's a great question. I think, you know, our role in this work has been to shine a light on excellence. We've been honored to award 133 skilled trades teachers with this prize for teaching excellence. I think you were able to attend one of those celebrations in Utah. And it's our hope that we can share the best practices that we're seeing from these educators across the country. You know, the counselor role needs to be lifted up in terms of the importance that they play in helping students to get to college and connect with careers. We have found that a dedicated counselor, or sometimes an intermediary organization that can make those connections between high school and work-based learning opportunities is critical to success. So those folks as well, the counselors, need to be recognized for the incredible work that they're doing. They need to be lifted up. They need to be supported by nonprofits and other community organizations, and business needs to be at the table. So we've really got to break down those barriers between K-12 workforce development and industry and higher ed.
Yeah, thank you. And Mrs. Mosley, you actually mentioned how early your program starts, and that's so important. We talked about the dual enrollment program that's becoming increasingly popular. How can we encourage more schools and colleges to have that understanding of the dual enrollment, being able to, as young people come through high school, have actually credit in the colleges they might go into later on? How can we encourage that, and maybe what are some of the challenges that you're seeing so far?
So some of the challenges for us would be that the transportation barrier. So if the course can't be taught on the high school campus, there's going to be a lot of barriers for some students that don't have transportation to actually get to the college campus where they're taught. Mm-hmm. So the conversation needs to be between the post-secondary institution and the high school is either to figure out the transportation issue, or to, similarly like he was saying with the health science program, to have adjunct professors that are able to come onto the high school campus and to teach them there to break down that barrier for students.
Now, is that something you'll be able to do with your training facilities, and what some of my colleagues have had a chance to see so far?
Yes, I believe in many of our CTE programs, thanks to the funding that we've had from the Perkins Act, that we have a lot of great equipment and programs, and we would be able to teach them. But you know, I think that we would probably have to have additional funding to be able to upgrade some of those programs.
I had questions for the other two. I really appreciate what you guys are doing. Seriously, this is probably one of the more important conversations we can have as a nation to make sure our kids can give that workforce the supply that we all need right now. So thanks so much. Appreciate your efforts. Are you back?
Thank you, Mr. Owens. Let's go to New York. Mr. Williams, Brandon Williams, you recognize for thoughts or questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Chairman Bean, thank you for bringing this topic to the forefront. It's absolutely critical in my district. Workforce development at all levels is critical to the economic success of our area. We are very fortunate to be anticipating the single largest CHIPS Act grant for chip fabrication in the entire country. And We need the workforce to get us there, and that involves everyone in our district. Have any of you, are any of you familiar with the term Industry 4.0? Have you heard that term? The Industrial Revolution that began 160 years ago or so really was a transformation of labor to a form of machines performing labor. And that had this migration off of the farms and into the factories. We've all studied the Industrial Revolution. But that continued into the 70s and 80s when computers and automation really began to augment what humans could do. But it also increased the sophistication of the machines that were involved in every level of what we do. Today, we're on the verge and are entering what's called the fourth industrial revolution, which is digitally enabled technologies that permeate things that are in the trades and construction and manufacturing and all the things that are involved in this next generation workforce. It's digital technologies, it's robotics, it's artificial intelligence. All of these things are actually allowing what historically we think of as blue-collar jobs to be able to add much greater value in their labor and therefore command much higher wages. And so that in many ways, it's not exactly true, but it's almost like inverting the pyramid of what we grew up with, that the traditional education path puts you on an increasing pyramid to have and be able to command a higher and higher premium for your labor. But today, because of the fourth industrial revolution, that pyramid is inverting, that in order to install, maintain an HVAC system requires a tremendous amount of technical knowledge and skill. To operate a refinery, we are in the process of increasing the technology, the compute technology in our refineries and chemical plants by 1,000-fold. Not 1,000%, 1,000-fold, so that we're actually running artificial intelligence in the control loops or the production systems in our economy. So what does that mean for what you do is that you are preparing an extraordinarily important and talented group of workers that will and are going to be well paid, that are entirely out of line with the education system that we've grown up with. So I'm very excited about it and been involved in that, and you're a critical part and critical to our district. One question I'd like to address, it's not a gotcha question, it's a genuine question. We're fortunate to have great STEM education in my district. I like drawing attention to Dr. Desiato, who was the New York State Superintendent of the Year for the entire state, and she runs an excellent K-12 system, the Minoe Syracuse system, and does a great job with STEM. Is STEM competing with CTE? Are these mutually exclusive? Are they complementary? How can we make these two important initiatives work together to achieve a desired outcome? Can anybody help me out with that? Mr. Kincaid, we're going to go to you, sir.
Great, thank you. The hard question, right? AI, my grandma thinks the machines are taking over. So, there is certainly a shift in how we're educating students in the future. In order to get students to where they need to be in the workforce, it requires educators to work very directly with these emerging industries like what you're talking about. This isn't your, grandma's Oldsmobile anymore, right? We have to be nimble. We have to be connected to the industry and the emerging technologies. And more importantly, the folks that are leading this innovation within industry need to be highly responsive and involved in schools so that we're making sure that we're teaching the right components. I would also say that, this highlights the need for teacher externships as well, making sure that those folks that are in our classrooms understand how the technology is changing, even within that workforce, so they can bring that knowledge back to their students. It's going to require a much different level of collaboration than what we've ever experienced in order to make sure that we are prepared and can drive this economy in the direction that it needs to go.
That's a fantastic answer and a really solid and good connections. My time's expired. Thank you. I yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Let's go to California. The chairman of Workforce Protections has just slipped in, and he is recognized for thoughts or questions. Mr. Kiley of California.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you for convening this hearing on a really important topic, and I think an underappreciated topic, and one that probably doesn't get enough focus when it comes to public policy. And I was really struck, Mr. Corwin, by a statistic from your testimony that spending on CTE makes up just 3% of the estimated overall funding for high school and middle school education in the United States. Just 3%, and that's despite the manifold benefits of career education in schools. Just to sort of reiterate some from your testimony as well as some of our other witnesses, this is something that is overwhelmingly desired by parents and by students. You cite in your research that 80% of parents favor greater offerings of career education in schools. Frankly, that sounds low to me. I don't think I've ever talked to a parent who doesn't think it's a good idea to have more opportunities for students to engage here. But also, from the perspective of academic achievement, there are so many benefits to having career education offerings in our schools. In fact, your research shows that when students engage in career education, they're actually more likely to graduate from high school. They're more likely to enroll in post-secondary education. There are social, emotional benefits. Their enthusiasm for learning increases. Their pride in their schoolwork increases. I can affirm this from my own experience, having been a high school teacher. I can tell you how much pride and excitement students had for these sort of classes where they could really do hands-on work, and how that then sort of spilled over into their broader coursework. It made them excited to come to school. It gave them hope and a sense of purpose. And so, and beyond that, the pathways that we're creating here are to really good jobs that can pay well, that young people can build a career around, and then more than that, it's filling critical workforce needs. Mr. Corwin, in your research, you cite one statistic that 88% of construction firms have trouble finding skilled workers. There are over 73,000 openings for electricians every single year. And so it just makes all the sense in the world to focus more, to invest more in this area, yet still just 3% of resources are being spent specifically on career education. So this is a question for Mr. Corwin or for any of our other witnesses as well. You've cited a lot of very successful programs which do exist all across the country, and we've also discussed barriers such as a lack of, of trained teachers and other, resources. So can you kind of highlight some jurisdictions that have managed to not just offer sort of isolated, successful programs, but have been able to offer these opportunities to students at scale? And what has it taken to sort of awaken the political will to make the investments and to take the steps that are necessary to not just have a successful program here and there, to make it fundamentally part of the offerings available to all students within those jurisdictions?
Sure. I mean, I think where we have seen the greatest success and students and schools flourish around CTE has been where there's been the collaboration and the partnership between K-12 and industry and workforce development. So as we've talked about breaking down those barriers, I mean, one that comes to mind is in Colorado, in Denver. There's a combination of comprehensive high schools that are doing phenomenal CTE work, career technical centers, and industry is at the table. There's support by elected officials across the board, and that's what our students deserve, is that type of partnership, having their backs and providing these opportunities. I think one of the reasons we were really excited to be included today is part of our role is to raise attention to this issue with other funders and with industry and with other sectors. When our founder heard that CTE didn't have much financial support, there weren't many other foundations supporting the work, there really wasn't much of a power behind the work, he said, that's where I want to go. That's where I want to kind of be a spark and see if we can be a model and have other folks follow. And just, by today's discussion, I'm really excited to hear that this is beginning to happen. So thank you.
Well, thank you, and thanks very much for the work that you're doing. I yield back.
Thank you very much. We are nearing the end of our committee. I'm really proud of this. The members, we had great conversation. We had great, we came together, I think. I want to thank Ranking Member Bonamici. I'm about to yield to you, Ranking Member, for your final thoughts, but I want to thank you personally. I think we've both illustrated that both sides of the aisle can come together and elevate that we have work to do. We have work to do to let everybody know there's choices out there, that there's not a one pathway or one size fits all. And Ms. Bonamici, you have sold me on joining the CTE caucus, which I am looking forward to come in and being a part of that. But what are your final thoughts before we adjourn?
Well, we appreciate that, Mr. Chairman, and I've often said, as a senior member of this committee, that we need to make sure everyone has a path, and not everyone's on the same path. So I think this is an important conversation. We know that career and technical education is a way for students to explore those career pathways, gain relevant and competitive skills. That hands-on learning that we talked about is so important. And I have to emphasize that CTE benefits students regardless of what path they take, whether they go into college or workforce program and directly into a career. As we mentioned, and I know Mr. Corwin has continued to mention, CTE courses help keep students in school. They increase graduation rates, but also they're beneficial for students to learn those very, very important soft skills that I hear about, and I know you do as well when we talk to employers. So they're really helpful programs. We discussed today how schools and administrators use career and technical education and programs and courses to expand work-based learning, such as youth apprenticeship, the dual enrollment courses, which is important, and that's to help strengthen the support, but also leveraging industry-recognized credentials. But it's also important to emphasize that all students should have access to CTE courses. They should have this opportunity to explore careers and prepare for the next step after high school graduation. Because we know that these courses, through career and technical education, and regardless, I know Mr. Williams asked a question about AI and technology and CTE competing with STEM, which I say STEAM, or Mr. Thompson says with 2A. There are a lot of CTE programs that involve a lot of technology and a lot of STEM or STEAM. And those are all important, and important for students to have those choices. And when we see students in a culinary program, yes, they're learning skills, but they're also learning science and nutrition. And so there's just a lot of benefit, regardless of what program it is. But I want to emphasize that we need to make sure that all of the students get this benefit, and students from all backgrounds should have access to programs that prepare them for life, for college, for a job, for a long-term sustainable career. That's not going to happen if we don't do this properly, if there's some outdated and in some ways inequitable practices that continue to funnel some students into more low-wage jobs. I hope we can turn the page on that chapter and recognize that every student has tremendous potential and it should have those options. So I remain committed to working together, Mr. Chairman and committee members, on this to support CTE as a very important part of well-rounded education. I hope that we can update the funding, as I mentioned, which over the past 4 decades has decreased. I certainly appreciate, the foundations and the private industry and everyone else who's helping, but that Perkins funding really makes a difference because we have a lot of schools and a lot of districts across the country. And with the value of this investment, I hope this is something we can accomplish to update that funding to today. So thank you again, Mr. Chairman. Thank you to our witnesses, and I yield back the balance of my
Thank you
time.
very much, Ranking Member. Well done, well said, and I think we're definitely on the same team. Thank you, everybody, to help put the hearing together. I want to recognize the Clay County School Superintendent, David Brodsky, who sent Kelly, and Kelly, thank you for coming. Superintendent Brodsky is in Tallahassee today at Clay County Day in the state of Florida. I want to wish your daughter the best and thank your daughter for letting you come. She's at an ag competition in Clay County, so it's truly a big deal. To all our panelists, I did something that I probably shouldn't have done. I bragged how good you guys were going to be. I said this all-star panel is among the best. Let me tell you what you did. You exceeded expectations today, each of you, and you'll always get to tell everybody you testified before Congress. We're about to adjourn, but if you can stick around, I'd love to take a picture of you guys before we leave. There being no further business to come before us, unless I have to say something official. Do I have to say something official? Hopefully we can submit questions and let everybody know the record is open. Without objection, there being no further business, this subcommittee stands adjourned. Thank you.